And from the consumer point of view, what do they expect from beer in the different countries?
I think a lot of it is around lifestyle. Um, some research recently in Vietnam around the beer market, and the research firm concluded that successful beer marketing was about winning life events. Whether or not it's a party with your co-workers, whether or not it is a birthday, you're going out with friends, with your local friends, um, a kind of your friendship group, as it were. People expect different things um, from beer on different occasions. So if you're drinking with your co-workers, you'll go out to a local bar, sit on the street, and drink the local beer. For you drink a Saigon Special or Saigon Export for 70 cents a can. If you are going out with family for a nice maybe your mother's 50th birthday or some family celebration or a wedding, you might spend more money on a craft beer. So you might go to a craft place which has a nicer environment. It has a nicely managed and manicured outlet. So very much about the environment, the occasion of when you're drinking the beer. Flavor wise, they are looking for more flavor. Clearly, if you're having a craft beer, there's going to be more flavor in there. But consumer education is still fairly basic around the region. So I think people are looking for more flavor in their beer. They don't necessarily know what that flavor is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I like that beer. When you ask them what it is, oh, I don't know. It's kind of fruity. It's fruity beer. Um, they don't know that they're looking for the hops. That fruit comes from the hop flavor, and so quite a lot of education, I think, needs to be done around the region for consumers, like consumer education. It's getting better, but there's still room for a lot more education.
Are there any publications, for example, that discuss beer in a serious way?
Not really. China, you have a company called Beer Matters in China, and they organize events for consumers. They have educational talks about what beer tastes like and the flavors of beer. There, one of their founders has written several books for the market on beer flavors, the development of beer in China, these kind of things. So China's quite good. I think the other markets, there's not really a lot going on. There are people, there are influencers. They're talking about different beers as well, kind of online.
So will people really be depending on the internet for their beer education?
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much, yeah. There aren't really any physical publications going on at the moment. I think it's very difficult for somebody to produce a magazine and make it financially viable as well, and distribute. Also, that's quite a tough ask in the modern day and age. So it's mostly the internet.
Do you think beer quality is improving in Asia?
Definitely, definitely. What we've seen with the Asia Beer Championship and judges who have been coming and joining us for the last now 8 years, 9 years we've been running the competition. They've seen an improvement. Their comments year on year has been, oh, the quality is getting better. It's getting better. And then when we have judges who've come from overseas who may not have traveled to Asia before, we've had comments of, wow, we didn't expect this. We didn't expect this kind of quality of product in the competition. So it's definitely improving. I think it could improve. In some cases, it could improve faster, but there is a lack of education around the region, a lack of kind of opportunities for brewers to upskill themselves and to develop their professional skills. There's not a lot of opportunities around the region for that. Not a lot of courses being run. So I think that's maybe the next stage of development in the industry as it develops, is the introduction of more professional development.
Are there a lot of foreign brewers operating in the craft world in Asia?
Quite a few different markets have more foreign brewers. Vietnam, there's quite a few foreign brewers. Singapore, not really. Thailand, not really. India, not very much. Hong Kong, there's a few foreign brewers. So I think you're seeing more and more local brewers coming through. Um, yeah, a lot have moved up from home brewing up into craft brewing. So they're bringing with them some very interesting new takes on how to brew or what to brew. I think home brewers are generally a lot more experimental. There's some hits and some misses. But Thailand, for example, is seeing some amazing fruit beers being produced and some amazing beers being produced using local products, which is great to see.
So are there any distinct local styles developing in different countries?
I think you're seeing what you're generally seeing is a development of established styles to suit the local palate. Um, if we look at India, for example, I was judging in India a few years ago, and we realized that a lot of the lagers were coming in slightly sweeter, less attenuated, and talking with the local brewers, they were saying, "Yeah, this is the style that sells in India." Indian brewers, Indian consumers typically don't like that very crisp, very dry, bitter Pilsner style. They like a little bit more, little bit more sweet, little slightly sweeter beer. Um, and so the brewers are tending to brew to that that flavor profile in order to sell their beers in the market. So I think we're starting to see that. We're seeing more styles being adapted to local palates as opposed to actual styles coming through. I mean, I guess you could say rice beers is coming through as a new style. We introduced the category 2 years ago into the Asia Beer Championship because we saw more rice lagers being brewed around the
So is this
region.
100% rice or a combination of rice and barley?
It would be a combination. It would be a combination. It wouldn't be 100%. As one of our guests at Brew Asia a few years ago commented, he was asked, can you brew 100% rice beer? And he was from Japan, and his comment was, we call that sake. So yeah,
I,
it's a combination. And the interesting thing is the brewers are using it. And I'd say that they're using it in two different ways. One way, some of the brewers are using the rice to lighten the beer, to clean it out, to brew a nicer, crisper beer. Other brewers are really playing with the flavor of the rice. They're getting a lighter body beer because they're using the rice, but they're also playing on maybe if it's a jasmine rice they're using or a particular local strain of rice, they're trying to bring those flavors through the beer, which makes it very interesting. That's that creativity is very interesting to see. And also tea beers as well. I think in China, in particular, China and Taiwan, you're seeing more tea beers come through. Some Kölsch takes tea fantastically. If you put a nice a jasmine tea on a Kölsch, it comes out beautifully. There's some really nice beers out there.
that sounds quite interesting. So
Mm, mm.
are there a lot of craft lagers being brewed, or is it a lot of
Definitely more and more.
yeah?
Yeah, more. Yeah, I think in the early days, the industry very much followed the American craft beer style. So it went for hoppy IPAs, West Coast, particularly West Coast style IPAs, amber ales as well, and and particularly over the last few years, you've seen much more of a move towards lagers and producing those lighter styles of beers because generally speaking, yeah, the climate is tropical. If you talk about Southeast Asia, if you're talking about India, yeah, we have a very tropical climate. It's hot every day. So lagers suit this environment perfectly. And I think you've seen the brewers who are now more confident with their skills of producing a nice clean beer are moving towards the lagers, and they're moving towards, I say, rice lagers, nice, cleaner lagers, as opposed to rely more on that kind of we're following the American hoppy IPA style. Yeah, they're still brewing those, but you're seeing more and more lagers coming onto the market, which are nice and clean.
Which are the most popular craft styles then?
If you're looking Vietnam, it would be lager, because they have a big history with drinking lagers in Vietnam. India as well. Lager is very popular in India, but also wheat beers as well. India and China are huge on wheat beers. I think for our Asia Beer Championship last year, the final, the six beers that made the final were three Indian wheat beers and three Chinese wheat beers for our wheat beer final, in the vice category. So wheat's very popular. You have to. I think with both India and China, if you have a brewery, you have to be brewing a wheat beer. You have to be brewing a good wheat beer.
Okay. And which country do you think has the best craft scene at the moment?
Probably Vietnam, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's a good market there. They've struggled a little bit over the last couple of years just because of the economy, but now everything's picking back up again. What you're seeing is good variety in the beers. You're seeing everything from lagers. There's cucumber pilsner, which does very well from one particular brewery, and they go into the pale ales, the hazy IPAs, stouts. They have a very varied um, portfolio of beers you're seeing coming through. Somewhere like India, volume wise, is doing huge volumes with craft beer, but the styles are still fairly limited, because the market is still starting, it's still developing. So you're seeing lagers, wheats, maybe some stouts as well. IPAs are starting to come in, but not so much. So yeah, so I'd say Vietnam is probably the most dynamic and interesting of the markets at the moment.
Okay. And where would you put
Just one, but for sorry, just but for experimentation, Thailand is definitely the best. There's some fantastic, exciting brews coming out of Thailand.
Okay. And where does Singapore fit in this spectrum?
Singapore, I mean, there's definitely interesting things going on in Singapore. There's some very nice beers being produced. I think Singapore struggles because it's such a small market. When you compare it to the other nations, you're talking, you got 30 million, 40 million people in other nations, a billion people in India, or more than a billion people in India, and Singapore is an island of 6 million people. When you whittle down the actual drinking population, it's relatively small. So I think that they're caught between wanting to experiment with new styles, and there are some lovely beers being produced in Singapore, but also you need those staples. You need the lagers, which people typically will drink. Sitting on the equator every day, lager is going to be your staple beer, so they need to produce those lagers. Um, but yeah, one of the breweries produces an onde stout, I think they're producing, or an onde lager, which is a local cake, which is sort of coconut and pandan and palm sugar. So they're getting these flavors into their beer. They also produce a chrysanthemum tea beer as well. So they're experimental, but the experimental tends to be very much on the side. Their main products are the lagers, which they need to get out onto the market.
And what's the role of the Asia Beer Championship in encouraging brewers in the region?
Yeah, I mean, we set up the competition, I think 8 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago now, and it was very much to help provide feedback to the brewers. Yeah, it's great to win a medal at the competition because then you can use that for your marketing. You can reinforce. It helps your story with your consumers to kind of tell them that they've made the right choice. To say, you've been drinking our beer. Here we go. We've won a medal for it. You're making the right choice. You're drinking the right beer. It's a good beer you're drinking. But I think, as the competition grows, not everybody can win a gold, silver, or bronze. There is only one medal in each category. We have, I think, 34 categories now. There's only one medal, one gold, one silver, one bronze in the category. So as the competition grows, less people can win those medals. It becomes more exclusive if you can actually win that medal. So the important thing then is the feedback, is that getting that feedback to the brewers. And one of the reasons why we decided to ring fence it as the Asia Beer Championship, beers brewed outside of Asia are not allowed to enter the competition. It's only Asian brewed beers because we wanted to encourage the smaller breweries to enter their beers in the competition as well and still feel that they have a chance of winning and winning medals in the competition, as opposed to going up against some of the huge, going up against Weihenstephaner or Hoegaarden in the wheat beer category. Yeah, there are global competitions that you can do that. But for us, it's very important to get that feedback to the breweries to help them with their processes, help them identify what they're doing with their beers, if they're going in the right direction, if they need to readjust what they're doing in the brew house. Um, and also, one of the issues that you do have around Asia is in Asia it's called face. So you must always when you're talking with someone, you must always give them face. You must always give them respect. So sometimes it's difficult for one brewer to talk honestly to another brewer about their beer.
Okay, yeah.
Even if there might be a clear fault, it's quite difficult for them to say, you know, okay, I get that, but I think your beer is oxidized. I think your packaging is a problem because then the brewer who produced the beer loses face.
Yeah.
So that is sometimes quite difficult. It's quite a difficult conversation to have between the brewers. So by bringing in independent um, assessors who are, nobody knows who is assessing whose beer, it means that the judges can then give honest feedback to the brewers and say, look, I think you need to look at this in your beer, or this is an excellent beer. It's well balanced, perfect. Yeah. So judges who can then give that feedback to the brewers is very important.
So, how do you see the future of the craft beer scene in Asia?
I think it's very rosy, particularly with the way the economies are going to develop over the next few years. Southeast Asia is seen as is one of the developing regions. So I think they're looking at 6 to 8% growth. India's looking at 8% growth. That's going to help develop the middle class. You can have a growing middle class, growing disposable income, which I think is going to help craft beer people. That's a perfect growth bed for craft beer. More people buying will come to more experiment. Will turn into more experimentation by the brewers around the region, and I think it's very good. I think it's very healthy outlook for the next 5 to 10 years. Some economies have got a bit of a little bit of struggle to sort themselves out, but once that's done, I think particularly Southeast Asia and India is looking very rosy.
So, in general, things are looking pretty good.
Yes, I think so. I think so. Yeah, everywhere's got their struggles, but I think in general, yeah, looking pretty good.
Well, thank you very much for that very interesting insight into the beer scene in Asia. And yeah, hopefully I'll get to come back there and sample some more of it soon.
Yeah, well, we'll look forward to seeing you again soon, Ron. And thanks very much for having me on your show.
Yeah, well, always a pleasure to chat.